Hi guys, welcome back to another production meeting. We are all here. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Nothing, man. I'm so stoked for this very minimalistic review. Are you excited?
I maybe have
I
like five
am.
sentences. Five sentences.
Yeah.
Yay.
Cinema is sage.
That's
That's what everyone else is saying.
Yeah, of course. Which we'll talk about
no,
later
that's
too. So,
it's not to tip my attitude towards the movie. I'm just saying it's an interesting I mean, spotlight films are typically ones that don't get a lot of spotlight. So they're not as anticipated. So but we'll have good things to say. But Clint, what have you been doing? You probably have been doing more than I have.
um, probably not. I've been playing a lot of Jedi Survivor because I heard that Spider-Man was like 100 gigs. So I had to get that off
Yeah.
my PS5 before I got Spider-Man, which was unsuccessful. So I just downloaded Spider-Man anyway. Um, I played like an hour of it because it took literally 6 hours to download on my PS5.
Mhm.
Um, so been watching that, and then I binged through Fall of House of Usher, which I did a mini
Mhm.
review on our group. Uh, I think this is probably up there with Haunting of Hill House. Like I really like this. And like you and I were talking, Alex, like his stuff, yes, sometimes can be a very like can be a slow burn type of middle. Like Midnight Mass is a very slow burn. Um,
Oh, I never did watch that one. I completely forgot about that one.
yeah,
Hmm.
that one's good as well. I think that's one of his better ones as well. But this moved really quickly. Like it's 8 episodes and they're an hour long, but they still moved like pretty quickly. And I, being not a, I mean, not an aficionado of like Poe, but I did like read a lot of his stuff, and I was it's kind of like watching the MCU as a comic book nerd, where you're going, oh yeah, see that's kind of cool right there, and it's kind of like these hint and nods towards Edgar Allan Poe and stuff like that. So I really liked it, and I suggest that anybody like everybody watches it, and it wasn't like horribly gory either. I mean, there was like quick flashes of stuff, but it was a very interesting kind of take on like um choices and
Well, I would
I really
never
like it.
consider Mike Flanagan's stuff gory in any regard. I mean, he has, for me personally, a notorious formulaic like direction of always starting out definitely slow. Like I remember watching Doctor Sleep and being like, all right, this is slow, but the finale was just like, okay, this is good, or like the ending was super good. And I remember when we would review Hill House and Bly Manor, and I was the one who liked Bly Manor more just because of a super detailed part of like a later episode towards the I'd say last third of the show.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I would never consider him gory, so I probably wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't that much. This show is probably going to be a binge for another couple friend of ours in a few weeks. So I'm excited to watch it because y'all recommended it so much.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good. Um, and then pretty much this, like watching Flower Moon. So, oh, been watching Loki. I have been watching Loki. Um, I don't know yet. There's just
I
some.
have not at all.
Um, I'm not saying it's bad. I am saying that it is good, but because it's obviously Loki. These like most of these seasons are better, the best probably MCU TVs that they've had at all. And I fully admit it because I watch it all, but I don't know really where this is going because uh, this may be a minor spoiler, but like each episode, like the second and third episode, just kind of like start almost like you're supposed to know like what they're doing.
Hmm.
I don't know how to kind of explain that. It's like one episode will end at a certain point, and then like like this episode it started with them in Chicago in 1863 or 93, and you're like, oh,
Hmm.
okay. So just kind of like, there
Mm.
we go, there we are. All right, we're here.
Might be what you get when you have one of your writers and nobody else from your entire creative team returning for your second season.
Yeah.
Well,
we miss you, Kate. So, other than that, yeah, pretty good. What about you guys?
Ryan, what have you been doing?
well, I also started Fall of the House of Usher, but I haven't watched enough to really chime in. I think it's great so far. I I don't like the structure, but I get it enough to just say it's okay. Everything else is good enough for me to say, yeah, this works. Like I think for me, it's like they start you with like the narrative hook, which I think maybe gives too much away early on, and also like each so far. I mean, like I said, only watched like 3 episodes, um, but I was not in love with like giving away things, and then by the end you're like, oh, that was a red herring to get us hooked, and you don't really have a good excuse for not following that up. But I totally get it. Like it's
Mhm.
those are narrative elements, and I can't say Lost is one of my favorite shows ever and not give this a pass. So yeah, no, I really like it. Um, I also watched Once Upon a Studio, the little Disney short, which I think is awesome, really great. Uh, just super nostalgic. But I was like, hey, if you're looking for if you want to forgive Disney for everything for no reason for 6 minutes, then totally toss it on. It's great. You'll turn it off and you'll be mad that you were so happy about it. But like so great. Anyway, uh, so we saw Dumb Money in theaters, which I think is probably out of theaters by the time we'll actually get this up. I think it's probably out of
Wow.
theaters now, but I really liked it.
Yeah, probably down to like 1 or 2 shows for the entire day.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was right up there with like Big Short and uh, a lot of kind of underdog movies that aren't sports movies. That typical. Well, it's not really typical. It hasn't been done that much, but I thought it was good. Without
Hmm.
getting too much into it, I thought it was very good. It was very kind of interesting to watch a movie about something like Wall Street and have no idea what's going on, but get spoon fed enough to follow it without feeling like the movie's treating you either too dumb or too smart. So
Yeah, kind of like Adam McKay type of stuff.
yeah, very much. So I thought
Okay.
it was very good. I would definitely recommend that. Uh, Also watched The Exorcist Believer. So that was a movie that exists and is very bad. And I can't believe they shelled out $400 million for these movie rights. Um,
What?
Ew, four
I
hundred
mean, like
million?
like if you read that this movie is making money, which is true, for this budget, which is probably like 20, I think it was like 20-25 million dollars or something like that. Great, good for them for making money on nothing. But this is bad, and also these 3 movies will not make their budget back if you include the cost of purchasing the film rights, which they are contractually obligated to make 2 more of these things. So as long as they don't keep David Gordon Green, I am okay with more,
What
I
happened to him? Like
guess.
he
Well,
did that one Halloween and it was great, and then it was
yeah,
like,
because he followed a formula that works really well, and it works for this that series. And then he decided to make Halloween Kills, and now I'll never forgive him.
Neither will I.
evil dies tonight.
I don't understand, based on the
Oh,
reception of his latter 2 Halloween movies, how the studio was like, "Hey, we spent $400 million on this, so here you go." Like,
Wow.
and it's really bad. There are definitely some moments in there. I watched 1 and 3 building up to this one. I hadn't watched 3 before, and I didn't like that one at first. And now I really like it because I'm like, okay, that's what you should do with an Exorcist movie. Is Alex, you'd even like 3. You'd need to watch 1 first to watch 3. But 3 is
I
like,
am debating on watching one just because it's so old that maybe how dated it might look. It might dull my I don't really mess with this kind of stuff
well, the bad
mentality.
news for you, it looks incredible still. The good news
Hmm.
for you, the reputation it has as the scariest movie ever is the thing that hasn't held up, and it's not that movie's fault. Other movies have done the same thing and watered down the feel of this movie, of the original, I think. And the stuff that holds up really well in the original is actually like it's got a good story, it's got good drama. And the third one doubles down as like a dramatic thriller without really being, I think, 100% horror. I think it's like maybe 30% horror. And having seen one that's like a back to 60% horror, I'm like, I prefer a different approach Point being, it's a
Okay.
really bad movie. I don't recommend it. It's not satisfactory even. Like you can like I thought The Nun 2 was a bad movie, but I walked out being like, oh, what a bad movie. And I walked out Exorcist being like, what a waste of time. Um like I was just very unsatisfied. It's disjointed. It's not scary at all. There's one good jump scare that's not really good. It just gets you. And there's one like really creepy moment in the background, like very Hereditary for 1 second. And I was like, ooh, we're gonna get more of that, right? No. Plus they watched the original movie and they were like, oh yeah, you guys remember that time where we cut to the frame? I'm gonna spoil a great scare for you, Alex, but this movie's really old. I have to. There's a couple really quick cutaway jumps in the first Exorcist, and for the time, and even now, they're both fantastic. And this movie's like, okay, let's do that like 100 times. So I walked out with a
Not a
headache. We saw it
fan.
in Dolby, so I walked out with a headache.
Wow.
How many exorcists are there?
There's a lot, but once you get past 3, they're all off-brand, and two didn't have the blessing of the writer who directed 3, and then 4 and maybe 5 are like off-brand straight-to-video sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's 6.
Sounds so it's one of those things where it's like I don't even think you could call it a franchise. I think people just take the name and just because the writer just owned 2, and this movie ignores 2 and 3. It doesn't even matter. You don't even have to watch the original because the worst part about it was bringing what's her face back for this movie and doing absolutely nothing with her whatsoever. The mother from the first one who's like in the marketing so much. Like I swear the amount of time she's in the trailer is probably the amount of time she's in the movie.
I have an exorcist related joke. If anybody cares for it.
6. There's 6
So-
of them. Sure.
Well, that's a joke in and of itself, Clint. So you got the little girl from The Exorcist, right? She's all like again, and she's like, "What the heck happened?" You know, I thought I was cured. What's going on? And the priest is like, "I'm sorry, little one. Your parents didn't pay the full amount of the bill, so you've been repossessed." Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
I'll see myself out now.
Okay. You do that.
Well, I watched one more movie, but I don't know if I can follow that up.
Yeah. You can. I promise you.
Well, I don't want to talk about it too much because I'm saving it for my top 10 worst movies of the year. Because I went back, I needed to sew, so I needed to put on something, and I was like, I remember when this movie came out, I was like, I don't have any desire to watch this, especially in theaters, or give this movie attention whatsoever. But I was like, I do want to just call it the worst thing of the year for sure. And it did not disappoint. I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
So did some 4th graders in like
Man,
Indianapolis.
that came out in theaters a while ago. You must have Redboxed that or something.
Yeah, February was its theatrical
Yeah.
release, and I was like, why not? You know, we'll toss this on, and it did not disappoint. It is maybe one of the worst things I've probably seen. So,
Oh man, I remember people who were like, I don't know if you'd say super excited about it, but like they had some type of garb on that you're like, you knew they were going to see that, and then they come out and they go, man, that really sucked. So
Yeah.
I mean, even for hardcore fans, it was like, well, I don't even know if this has hardcore fans, but even they were disappointed.
those hardcore Winnie the Pooh fans were really excited for it, I guarantee.
Man, he wasn't going for honey or nothing, man. He wasn't
my
chasing
gosh.
rain clouds.
I've never seen, I don't think off the top of my head I've seen a movie try so little. Just period. Like early on, there's like this prologue that I won't talk about this movie to him because it's like a year old already. But like early on, there's like this prologue, and it's probably the most interesting thing in the movie by default, and it's all like sketch animated, and it's like, oh yeah, Christopher Robin left, and then they had a bad winter, so they all like reverted to their more animalistic forms, and I was like, that sounds like an interesting premise. Why are they just people in masks? And it never gets acknowledged. And at one point, like they get back to that where not really specifically that. Like there's one like Pooh is standing in the road and there's like a guy and he literally says like, it's not a bear, it's not a man, it's something else. And I'm like, really? Because it looks like a man in a bear mask.
Bear suit.
But
Yeah.
his first jump to conclusion is it's not a bear, it's not a man, it's something else.
Does anybody else know
Um,
that I don't know if it's a running joke, but in South Park they have that man bear pig thing. Anybody know about that?
No.
So there's
no,
a whole thing they call it man bear pig, and they're like, man, what is that a man? What is that a pig bear man? And he's like, and they make fun of Al Gore because he's in there for some reason, and he's like, no, stupid, it's man bear pig. So that's kind of where you made me think of that. It's not a man or a bear. But Ryan, later on, if you're number one of your top worst movies, one being the absolute worst movie, is not Cocaine Bear, then
oh,
I
it's not.
don't.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Oh,
No,
then I
let me
can't. I
tell you.
can't. I can't validate that
Alex,
list, man. I
Alex,
can't validate that.
at one point in the movie, and only once in the whole movie, near the end, he just waves his hand, and just a swarm of bees comes out of nowhere and chases somebody and kills them. Like, it just
Uh,
happens. It's never
then I have to
referenced
watch
again.
this.
He just controls bees for one scene. It's not. Let me clarify. This is not so bad it's good. It took me 2 attempts to get through this 90-minute movie.
Man, man, is Cocaine Bear at least in your top five?
It's up there.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's up there.
I'll respect that. I can respect that because you've seen Blood and Honey and I have not, and I don't know if I'll ever attempt that. So
You shouldn't. I almost didn't want to, just to not give attention to the fact that this movie just is like, oh, we can make IP and make a movie and get popular, and it worked. And so for that alone, I feel like calling it the worst movie of the year. But we'll talk about it at the end of the year because I've got a couple of those that just really make me mad. And Cocaine Bear's up there, but I don't even think it's top three. But remember, my ratings versus how much I hate them are different.
yeah,
But like Cocaine Bear, I
sure.
think is like a 2 for me, but I have a 4 that I want to put higher.
Well, even
Foreshadowing
fours.
for months from now.
I was gonna say fours can be good because I even talked about it today. We all watched *Malignant*, and that is so bad that it's actually fairly entertaining for me anyway.
I don't think back on *Malignant*.
Every once in a while, I'm like, that's the best four I've ever watched.
Wow. Alex, what have you been up to?
Nothing. What have I been? I've been catching up on Clone Wars like the usual. I'm now getting to the point where I'm like, I'm skipping some episodes because there's chunks of like, oh man, there's this water battle that has nothing to do with anything. So let's skip these first 5 episodes of this season. So I'm putting it into high gear now. I started playing a game called Evil West, not to be confused with a PS Plus free game called Weird West, which the game I played, Evil West, is kind of like a poor man's God of War. It's like it's got that camera angle, it's got somewhat of that gameplay mechanic. It's more or less just a beat 'em up game. The story I honestly couldn't care less about. It's not that great. It's just like set in like the mid 1800s, and you're just fighting vampires, and you get all these like cool um like lightning gloves kind of thing, weird pistols that aren't supernatural and everything, which sounds cool. But given that the story is like kind of like we're just blah 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 generic vampire stuff, nobody really cares. And then a small like weird thing about if anybody ever plays this, I doubt either of you will play this, is that the audio mixing is not great because the dialogue sounds super tinny, and I couldn't tell if it was my headphones or if I was just having a weird day of just like hearing weird tin dialogue. So I'm pretty sure it's the game. It's not terrible. If you just kind of want to gloss over that stuff, you can just go right into this, and it's pretty cool. As far as gameplay goes, it's fun. But that was more or less just a dead time killer for Spider-Man 2.
Oh man.
Which yeah, I also, Clint, you said you played an hour. I think I put in around the same amount of time. Um, the Matt and I were talking. He played it a little bit before I did. And he said that no spoilers. I mean, I've only played it a little bit, so I can't spoil much anyway. But jumping into it, he's like, I do not remember this many like combo type but like you got to remember a lot of buttons. Now granted they don't spoon feed it to you, but they're like, hey, do this, so they reteach you, but it's still like, okay, wait, I shoot my web, like I do this rapid with this button, but then I press my web to like just fling and hold the guy or pull him in, and I'm just like, okay, it's like the gears are grinding a little bit. I'm like, okay, wait a second, I gotta remember. But it's still fun. The gameplay is verbatim the same as one and Miles Morales. I mean, smoothest gameplay you could ever have. And I mean, I don't even play with the frame rate at like 60 or higher or wherever else it can go. I just play with better resolution, and it's already a phenomenal game. I like it so far. It's and they expanded from what, Queens, Manhattan, and it goes over to shoot. No, that's not what. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's Brooklyn. I wasn't thinking Brooklyn, but yeah. The point is that it's way bigger. And it looks super nice. So I mean, it there's no way it can't do good. So that's thing. Oh, and then of course, we're doing the review today. That's what I've done. I thought I caught a movie in between our last review of Creator and now, but I don't think I have. So that's all I've done. Yay.
Sweet. So just to kind of like put this out there. So there are going to be 7 movies, 7 Exorcist movies. Yay. And then the TV show. Now, I'm not sure where in the continuity the TV show lies, because I could have swore that the TV show was a retelling of the first movie? Question mark?
Great. So much to look forward to.
So I'm not entirely sure if that's
where I'm calling lies. Right now I'm calling it. They're gonna go 3 movies and stop. They're gonna Fantastic Beasts it and just scrap the rest.
And I didn't realize that it was Universal that bought it. I thought it was like Miramax or Disney or whatever it was. But yeah, the next one, The Exorcist Deceiver, comes out on April 18th, 2025.
They picked a rhyme scheme back to back.
I was thinking the same thing. We got Believer and Deceiver. Come on, what is this?
I guess it's not really right, but still, like,
yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah. So
what would be the next thing? Exorcist Reliever.
Sure.
We do a sports one and it's Exorcist Receiver.
So it's Believer, Deceiver, and Receiver. Universal, make that happen. That's amazing. Okay. So we're gonna get into some news. As soon as I pull up my news. Okay. So let's start with the oldest, going back into the newest. So there have been rumors that Hush is going to be the villain of Batman 2, for Matt Reeves' new Batman 2. For those of you that do not know, Hush is... Oh my jeez.
I know, you're the comic book guy, man.
Okay, so Hush is a pretty newer villain, and his identity is Tommy Elliott, and there's actually a comic book run by Jim Lee and Jeff Johns, and it's Batman Hush. I believe they made an animated series, which is, don't watch the animated.
Yes, I do know that. Yeah,
don't watch the animated one. It changes it drastically. So But Hush is his name is Tommy Elliott, and he's a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne, and he is a um plastic surgeon, I believe, that gets obviously he has like a grudge against the Wayne family and yada yada yada. So um I don't know if we had talked about this before, but he would be a cool villain. Yes, he's a little newer villain. Yes, he's not as well known, obviously, to most Fairweather fans. So I'm still pushing for Freeze. I think that they should do Freeze. I think that they need to do.
I agree.
Bring back Schwarzenegger. Wait.
No. No.
Oh, Ryan, you just got disconnected. What?
Oh no, there goes Ryan. Okay, so yeah, I think that they need to redo Freeze. I think that would be a kind of a cool thing to do. Let's not rehash all the villains that he's already like that we've seen cinematically. I just think that they should take the ones that they kind of like effed up in the last two Schumacher films and redo them, like they did with Riddler. And I think this Paul Dano's Riddler was miles above Jim Carrey. So
Yeah. And I agree with the whole Freeze thing because I mean, Clint, you've probably played the Telltale game of Batman, and I think I don't know if they cover. I've played both seasons. I really hope they continue that. I doubt that'll ever happen because it got left on a cliffhanger. But Mr. Freeze or Dr. Freeze?
It's Dr. Victor Freeze, but he goes by Mr. Freeze.
Oh, okay. Well, Mr. Freeze, he's got a good backstory, and it's definitely one that you can put on on big screen. And I, for one, would love to see that adapted into the whole Reeves, Pattinson Batman. So I would go that way. Because I always think it's, when you go to the Joker too soon and then you want to continue, it's kind of like, I mean, he's the quintessential Batman villain. So it's like, kind of want to lead up to him, kind of like how they did with the Nolan. I mean, I know is the second film of the trilogy, but still, they didn't lead with him and they did the same thing here. But I think they could wait even more and have Mr. Freeze. And I would love that, but I doubt that's what's going to happen. Because the rumor is Hush, if not Joker outright. So
yeah, and as much as I think that Barry Keoghan is a very good actor. But like I don't know, I just don't want to do another Joker. Like you're already getting I mean, Heath Ledger was in 2008, and then we had the Joker movie, and then now we're gonna get like a sequel with Harley Quinn, and now we're gonna get like another Joker.
Yeah.
As much as I like it, it's just like, no, let's do somebody different. So
yeah, I agree.
Moving on. So Daredevil Born Again is being reset. This bums me out. I don't know. I really don't know what to say about this. Like, I from what the rumors are is that I guess they're scrapping whatever because of the writer strikes and the actor strikes and everything else that's going on in Hollywood. I guess the rumor is that Kevin Feige took a look at whatever was being filmed or what they had already, and he was like, no, change it. And so they're going to scrap it, and I guess they're getting like all new writers. So,
if it helps, I hope this is one of those situations where it's for the better. It seems like those situations don't exist very much. But I mean, if you look at the streaming model versus traditional TV, and then you look at like the way it's made, where you like make a pilot and then see how it does, and then you remake the pilot and keep going from there, which happened to some great shows. Those worked out, so maybe this is we're getting a little bit of an update on what that looks like, of like, this is nice try, we're going to start over. maybe it's for the best. And I know Feige talked a lot about pretty much wanting to restructure the MCU in films and shows based off of the last couple of years. So I'm like, I hope this is a good reaction, not a reaction as a result of the strikes. I know it ended up being a result of the strikes, or loosely.
Yeah, I think what my expectations of the show is pretty high because I like the Netflix series so much. Like, I think that was probably the best MCU show, period. Because I do know that he just recently said that everything Marvel is canicalized, if I'm saying that right, in some form or another. So all the MCU stuff that they did on Netflix is canonized anyway. So I'm hoping that they kind of go back towards that type of feel of Daredevil, because I know that like the showrunners were from, was it Covert Affairs or something, and that was just like, it wasn't, to me it was just not the tone of what Daredevil should be. So anyway, give me a second. So Universal potentially buying Warner Brothers. I
remember that. Others give their thoughts first.
I thought they
Whoever
were
had
bought. That's what I thought. I thought that they were bought by Discovery already. So I'm not really sure why. Like, what's going on? I'm kind of confused on like what the whole thing, like what was going on, because I could have swore that like Discovery had bought them for like 74 something billion dollars, and that they bought the whole thing. So I don't know if like Discovery bought like certain aspects of Warner Brothers, or they were buying I have to find it again.
It's not it wouldn't be something as simple as a three-way merger, would it? Like Discover, Warner Brothers.
Specifically, the article I'm reading right now is that it looks like it's a merger because it's Warner Brothers Discovery and NBC Universal. NBC Universal is potentially wanting to buy Warner Bros. Discovery, and it was a pitched merger, but I guess it might not happen. It doesn't sound. I don't know. I mean, I guess they already share some rights, don't they? I mean, if you look at like Universal Studios' ability to put Warner Brothers properties in their theme park.
Yeah, because all the Harry Potter stuff is in Universal. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I were Universal, I probably, if you already have, like, I don't know if you have the outright rights to do like Harry Potter and all DC, but I'm like, if you already do, then honestly, what's the rest of it? The point, like, you've already got and those are the big things. So it's like, in my opinion, I know there's plenty more, but it's like, why get super, super messy for not that much of a payoff? But I'm super simplifying it. So I know there's got to be way more of a profit potential anyway than what I think.
Well, from my understanding, I think they're the only studio that doesn't have like a comic book universe / franchise or whatever that they currently back, because I do know that they hold the rights to Hulk, like, and they're holding those pretty tightly, and that's why like I know that the Hulk hasn't gotten his like MCU, like another like solo film of his, like his solo film.
Who does, Universal or Warner Brothers?
Universal.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
So, and that's why there hasn't been another solo, like a Hulk solo film, because I know that for like a while they're like, again, more comic book talk, but it's just like I know that that they've been trying to do World War Hulk for quite a while, because it's one of the biggest storylines that he has. And they can't do it because Universal holds the rights, the film rights, so they would have, like, Disney would have to share. So Disney found the loophole and was like, okay, well, we'll make him a guest star in some of these things. And that's why, like, She-Hulk, he was only in there for like a couple episodes altogether. And like Ragnarok, he was like a side character. It wasn't his movie, it was Thor's movie. So there's a huge like loophole that Disney found. So I would say that like Universal is probably the only like studio right now that doesn't have like a super franchise. Well, I mean, Fast and Furious. It's like dramatically roll my eyes. But I don't think that they have anything as close to like Disney or Warner Brothers, or so I'm thinking that's probably why they want to take it, because it would have to be like the whole thing. They would have to take DC with them. And I think that's one of the things that like is slowing down like DC's releases, is maybe these rumors. I don't know.
I always wondered why Hulk never that he didn't have his standalone movie besides the whole Edward Norton one. Never knew that. So that's
Yeah.
that is news to me all together.
Yeah, that's why like it took a while for. If you ever like look through Disney Plus when it first dropped, like you couldn't see the Incredible Hulk, the Edward Norton one, because it was owned by Universal, and now for some reason they loaned it to Disney so they can complete their timeline. But cool. More Marvel news. Marvel TV moving away from limited series, hiring actual showrunners, and going towards a more multi-seasonal format. Duh. Sorry, Disney. Like, duh.
Yes.
Like,
it's almost like the template for this is like a series of like comic books that lay out several stories that you can use, you know.
Yeah. Though as like I admit this, like I watch everything that Marvel puts out, as much crap as is, and I still stand by Ms. Marvel. Like I thought it was decent. It was kind of put together really well. So, but yeah, it's shows like that, and like now that they're doing Loki season 2, it's just like, okay, like let's do that stuff. Let's integrate this stuff into where it doesn't have to be like world, like it doesn't have to have like some sort of integration into the films. Like it could be its own thing. Where like, yes, Loki season 2 is going to explain like more of the multiverse and more of all that stuff, and like Falcon and Winter Soldier introduced like US Agent and like the Thunderbolts and stuff like that. And but it's like in Ms. Marvel and how she fits into the MCU and stuff like that. But like let's tell stories like that. Let's tell, like you said, Ryan, let's do random comic books that just don't really have anything to really do with anything. And I think that's why I liked Hawkeye so much, because it really doesn't have anything to do with anything. He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time during Christmas, and kind of like Die Hard. So,
Yeah, we've talked about in videos past, like, is there a superhero fatigue? That's the only superhero fatigue ish thing that I would say. I mean, that's why I'm just like discouraged from watching a lot of these shows now, regardless of quality, or just general audience reviews, because it just feels exhausting to have to watch 8 hours or 10 hours, depending on how many episodes of something, just so it can connect in maybe one pivotal plot line to this overall thing. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like, I don't know if I'll watch Loki season 2. I probably will, but like, I couldn't care less about She-Hulk. I'm probably not going to finish Moon Knight, because after the first 2 episodes, that went super to me. And Miss Marvel. Now I know, Clint, you're absolutely entitled to your opinion. It doesn't change the fact that I'm super, like, I don't feel like investing that much time. I want to be able to just go and sit down. Now, if we ramp up this MCU again to an ultimate thing, like with what we know is going to happen to another, Avengers movie. I mean, there's no if. There's plenty of that going to happen. then at least it's just a 2 hour commitment. Whereas like we're talking about, 16, 20 to 30 hours of just all this stuff. And it's just like I'm hoping that Disney realizes that that's overkill in a time where, to be perfectly frank, people aren't caring as much anymore about the MCU, and that's not news. That's not like a surprise. After Endgame, people didn't know who these guys were. I'd never heard of Shang-Chi. I barely heard of Captain Marvel before Endgame. Kamala Khan, that was a new thing for me, and so it's like it just is overwhelming in a regard that it's the quality's not there, and it doesn't make sense to invest that much time for you know for multiple series. That's just my personal take on it. That's where superhero fatigue comes in. If you tell a genuinely good story, but in a 2 to 3 hour, I'll give you 3 hours time frame, then it's worth investing. But don't make every pivotal thing included in every aspect of these 10-hour shows or 10 hour seasons. So
Right.
that's my take on it.
Well, which is funny because that's kind of like what goes into another part of news is that Matthew Vaughn has jumped on this bandwagon of saying that we need to take a break from superhero films. Matthew Vaughn. It's pretty bad when Matthew Vaughn
yes
is
and
now
no.
saying it's their superhero fatigue. So
that's literally what I'm saying. That's the only make superhero films. It's fine. As long as you can shake off some rust and don't don't rehash the same old. It's the shows. It's like I don't think anybody is, or a significant percentage has gone down of people who care. So that's all. That's the only superhero fatigue. Shove out 5 more Batman films. I'll watch every single one of them. But as far as the show goes, yeah, no.
Well, I think what makes me worried is just like by the time that they get to like the characters that I want to see on film again, people aren't going to care, and then they're not going to make them.
Yeah.
I like I said, I like Batman and X-Men were my comic books growing up, and once they get to X-Men, it's just going to be like, oh, cool, another superhero movie, and then they're not going to make any more. Even though I think that X-Men would be amazing to see on film again, especially like a couple of them that we could do without those last 2.
Yeah, and I've talked with a friend of mine who loves the X-Men as well, too. But he I'm not so much an X-Men guy. Like I know Wolverine and Cyclops and all that, but he said it's great that they were able to produce those X-Men films, early 2000s and all, and I've not seen them all, so I just know that this one's good, this one's good. A lot of people dislike a few of them just because of, and he goes, they really oversaturated Wolverine. Like they just they went like, all right, here's Wolverine, we're really like, this is the glue that holds everything together, where there's so much more to like, so many avenues to go through, and you're just going down this one street multiple times.
Right. Well, yeah, you take what everybody cares about and you shove it in your face, and it's like, okay, like I will admit that I wasn't a huge, like I'm still not like a huge Wolverine fan. I love Logan, don't get me wrong, but I was never like a huge Wolverine fan to begin with. There's many different characters that I'd rather see in film than Wolverine. And Gambit, I like when he did the X-Men Origins movie, like when he popped up in there, I was kind of excited, but he kind of played it dope, and it was just kind of like, all right, that was kind of wasted. So,
and it's funny you bring up that movie now. So I almost feel like my opinion is not valid for that movie because I'm not an X-Men fan. Just as a general standalone, I don't know about a standalone film, but Origin, I liked Origin just because it was just something I could just sit down and watch, and like I didn't really care about how it connected outside of itself. So I thought it was fine, but I know that I know that I'm in the minority, and I almost kind of would say that I'm wrong. But and I would almost agree with you. Gambit is not portrayed in the way that I have seen in other media.
Well, okay, so the only thing, real quickly, the only thing that I will say about X-Men Origins is that it got to that third act, and I was like, no, this is not what
Oh
we're
yeah, the whole Deadpool thing. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
I was like, no, 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 no,
yeah.
this is not what we're doing. I thought that Gambit was played kind of they played him down. Like they kind of like
Mhm.
really kind of like played him down like his character was just kind of like a dopey, not really dopey, but he was just kind of like they portrayed him a little stupider than he really is.
Right.
However, on the flip side of that though, like Liv Schreiber as Sabretooth was amazing. And I
Mhm.
think that's what the first X-Men missed was that connection between Wolverine and Sabretooth. And I thought that they did that relationship justice. And I'm kind of like sad that he like Liv Trevor's now too old to kind of like come back to do this because I think that he would be amazing as Sabretooth. So,
Hmm.
but two other so real quick, official Fire Nation pictures have been released. What?
They were so good, I thought they were fake.
Yeah, those.
Right. I
I
same.
was like, oh, it's AI art, and I opened it, and I was like, oh, that's a real human.
Yeah. Um, I'm excited. Even though the creators have left, due to creative differences with Netflix. Boo. I'm still kind of excited for this. Like I love Avatar, and yes, I said Avatar. So, um, we're gonna let's go through that. So, Spider-Man 2 is best-selling PS game. PS Studios game. Alex, am I right? With
Yes.
2.5 million
Mhm.
copies sold within the first 24 hours. Yeah, good for you, Spider-Man. And last but not least, Mission Impossible and A Quiet Place have been pushed back due to writers' strikes. I'm with you, Alex. I kind of thought we were over with this. Like, why are we doing this
Yeah.
stuff now?
Because they,
It's
because
the writers got what they want, and then the actors, are just like,
yeah. So after and I had all the terms in my head just in case we had this conversation, and I was like, I'm gonna forget those just by tonight. But yeah, the negotiations broke down because of some really, really, really bad negotiating tactics on SAG's behalf, I think. And then they had that pitch from Clooney and the group, who I think are genuinely trying to help. And SAG after was like, "Oh yeah, those are great. Those are great. Nothing to do with this." And everyone's like, they're kind of all trying to wrap this up, but actors trying to wrap up a strike makes the other half say, "Oh well, they're getting antsy. We can wait them out and get some more terms and
Yeah.
fight them on this residual stuff." So I don't.
Boo. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else?
I'm excited about
no.
Alien next year. I guess that's a thing that's coming out, and Ridley Scott said it's great. So
Yeah.
I forgot it was happening. Every time there's an Alien announcement, I'm like, "Yeah, we'll see it. I'll believe when I see it."
Yeah. Where's yours, Neil Blomkamp? Yeah. The only thing well, real quickly, the only thing I will say about this Mission Impossible stuff, why do we keep pushing this back like years? Like, wasn't the last time they pushed this back like almost a year?
I
Like, what?
I would
Bro.
like to say that that probably is like okay, we're gonna push it way back, so then we have time that we don't feel like we have a time crunch, and we're not like continually pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. It's just like, all right, there's gonna give us plenty of time between now and then to come up to some agreement. So I really don't think that once they make that year, that they're like, okay, in between, let's say a month from now, everything's good. They come to an agreement and all that, and then they're like, you know what? Okay, we're gonna now move it up 5 months, 6 months, and um, I don't know. I think it's more or less just to give them a lot of time. Now, do they need that much time? That's the whole point. We don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, you wouldn't think they would, but who knows? I mean, it's just we didn't think we were going to need what? How long did it take to get the writer's deal? 5 months,
Um,
six, something like that.
Something like that.
So whereas I think when they were doing negotiating, what, 10 years ago? I don't know how long these deals last. Well, let's say 10 because I don't know. I think it was just a 2, 3 month span, if that. And then, it's like over twice that. So who knows these days, especially with the whole AI thing. So yeah, it's just a purely give an egregious amount of time to come up with something. And yet we still have Aquaman where it is. So what's happening?
You could tell me right now that that movie is only the trailer and they didn't actually shoot anything else, and I believe you.
Brian, yeah, I'm right
Definitely
there
could be.
too. I can't confidently say that there is a movie.
Nothing but horror stories, and then trailer coming in September. And I'm like, does exist.
At least James Wan says it
Uh,
exists, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna believe.
The,
All right.
the one that I remember that was like that too, Ryan, was not Venom. Shoot, what's that other Sony thing?
Morbius.
Morbius. I was like, I know it's a
Yeah.
I am still in my blissful ignorance to think that that movie is just a trailer, and I liked the trailer. It was okay, and that's how I'm going to feel about the movie because I've never seen it. I don't want to see it.
good. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to see it.
Yeah. Oh, I know. All right. So we actually seen a movie this week. Yay!
For clarification, we are going from Morbius to Scorsese in one sentence.
Yes, because I blissfully ignore that that movie exists. It's just the trailer, remember? Just the trailer. So yes, we have watched Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and Lily Gladstone. The movie is about the murders of a few Osage women, people, indigenous people of Oklahoma, under the Osage Nation during the 1920s, and the FBI getting involved. So, I don't really have much to say about this movie. Now, one, I will say that I did like the movie. I will start off by saying that I will give it an 8. Strictly for the fact that, like, I don't think that it was like amazing. I think there probably could, like, as weird as this is going to sound, it probably needed a little bit more detail because they kept using terms that if like I didn't read like the Variety like article and like, hey, maybe you should read this before you see Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm like, oh, this would have been helpful before I watched this movie. Where it kind of explains like some of the terms they were using, like head rights. And like Robert De Niro says it's like 60 times during this movie, and I'm going, what is that? Like, are we talking like tombstones or like hair? Like, what are we doing? And all I could figure
What was the term?
head rights.
Oh,
I was like, what is that? So I didn't know what that was, and I'll fully admit that I had no idea what that is. If that makes me look stupid, then I'm just like, okay, well, I didn't know what it was. But he says it like a couple times, and I'm like, well, okay, why are these so important? And then like maybe a little bit more spoon feeding of that and like why this is so important would have probably made the movie a little bit more not better, but just like for me, it just I could have probably followed it a little bit better. I will say that all the performances were great. Like I was really kind of impressed with Lily Gladstone. I don't think that I've ever seen her in anything before. And as much as I don't want Martin Scorsese to be right that we can sit through 3.5 hours of movies, this doesn't. It's not that it doesn't feel like 3 hours, because there was a time there was just like, okay, why is Brendan Fraser screaming in my face? But I can't think of a single place that this gets cut. like to make this 2 hours, because it does tell a pretty important. And I do feel that the story is very important, and just about greed and like how we just, you know, as a like as the white just like nation just kind of like took over indigenous lands and just like tried to like murder them out and whatever else like that. I think this is an important story, and not to make it longer, but I could feel like they just focused on this family and specifically probably does did it a little injustice, because it's like we probably could have told it like everybody that was involved, not just this specific family. And I don't know if it's because whatever the main character does was just that egregious. Because I will admit that like literally as I'm going watching this movie, I'm like, Leonardo DiCaprio, is he really the bad guy in this movie? Is he just that dumb? And it's a little both.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything, like all the performances were great. Scorsese's direction was great. It's just an 8 because it's like I walked out of it going, okay, yeah, that was a movie. So 8 it is.
Brian, do you wanna go next, or you want me to go next?
It might be. I'll go.
Okay.
I'll try not to be too long-winded. So I saw it with my wife Rachel, who had read the book, and she kept getting restless and I didn't. So I'll get back to that.
Okay.
I thought it was good. I thought it was good. To go ahead and give where like the rating of where I am. I give it a 7. I could see this being something I bump up eventually. I don't know, a couple films like these, you know, they kind of take a little bit to settle in. And if I'm still thinking about this near the end of the year, then, or if I'm, you know, really feeling like rewatching it when it comes out, I like long movies. So I've got a couple specific thoughts, very specific thoughts, but overall, I thought it was wonderfully made. I thought Robert De Niro is the best he's been in so long. I cannot remember the last performance from Robert De Niro that was this good, because I wasn't born. So yeah, I thought everybody was great. I kept seeing that like the trailer was like the best performance of Leo DiCaprio's career, and I was like, I mean, he's great. But anyway, that's a lot of the negative thoughts I have, they're not negative. They're just not as positive as I feel like it should be. So I have two thoughts about the runtime. I thought for a 3.5-hour movie, it paced itself excellently.
Right.
I also thought it could be a 3-hour movie. And Clint, I actually want to get back to something that you said, because you're totally right. So the whole time I was like, this is a 9, this is a 9, this is a 9. This is so great. The slow tension building, the kind of political back and forth, is really great stuff. And then I didn't know where it was going. And I think Rachel was restless because she was like, she knew it was going, and in her head she was like, why are we spending so much time on the same beats? Which, without spoiling anything, I think the film takes a lot of the same beats about the middle to late to middle of the second act. So by the third act, I was in love with the idea of how the movie progresses with the investigation so much that I was like, this should have been the movie. And I get, like, you know, Scorsese took the movie and they gave him $200 million, so you're going to put De Niro and DiCaprio as your leads. I almost wish they weren't, and that we had spread out a little bit more of the investigation to cover more of the events, see things from a few different perspectives, and honestly just not cover a lot of the same stuff in the middle of the movie, which is great when you're there, but I don't think the payoff makes the whole runtime worth it.
Right.
I think I would feel the same things if we had just cut a couple of entire scenes, and this was the director's cut. And I'd probably watch this every year anyway because I like director's cuts. But I wouldn't mind seeing a tighter version of this movie. And then, nail in the coffin, the last 3 minutes, I give props for a really unique wrap up, and boy, did I hate it. It's really distracting, and it's going to be a love it or hate it thing. And I'm never going to fight anybody about it, because if they say I love it because it's unique and it's different and it fits the movie, it fits the time, great. I hated it. It just totally took me out of it.
I actually
was
thought
like,
it was
no,
a joke.
yeah, it's totally weird. And I've never wanted just the black outline with the box in the middle and some words so badly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was good. It was a 7. I think for me, it's just I feel like it could be better. So
yeah.
I agree with a lot of what Ryan's saying. I mean, the most freshest thought is what you were saying at the end there. I I I feel like I am like 98% agree with you, because I thought that was a very bizarre ending too. That last, like, that's such a weird, like, it kind of comes out of left field. Like, I obviously know what they're doing there, but it's like, but why though? But in the same breath, one of the things I've always expressed my love for as far as film production goes is Foley acting. And, right there, that was a lot of it. And that's kind of like a cheat code with me. I was like, don't doing the whole little, that piece of wood, or maybe what actually was a pencil on like some sandpaper or something to mimic writing, and like the whole jail cell, like, sound. And I was just like, I find that super interesting, but is it relevant to the overall what we were telling here? Like, does this scene make sense? No. So I too have almost like a love-hate relationship with that moment. So I was like, I'll take it for what it is, but that's for me personally. Like, for the general audience goer, they're gonna sit there and go, what? Huh? But performances in this movie were fairly good. I do agree with Ryan too that De Niro was absolutely fairly good in this. Because I sat there. Now, I mean, it became clear, honestly, right off the bat, that he was like up to sketchy things. But even as you, the viewer of this movie, are supposed to know that, he still grazed that area. Like, maybe he's not. Maybe there's going to be some type of weird outcome, because I don't know this story. I'm not familiar with his history, that he's just going to kind of flip it around, because he does so well. He doesn't make it super obvious that this is what his character's out to get. He's ultimately out to get this tribe's money. And, he does a phenomenal job of, going back and forth, like looking menacing, but also like, I'm your uncle, I want the best for you, kind of, blah blah blah. And so, tip my cap to him. Is super good. And even Leonardo, I mean, Ryan, you and I are matching beat for beat on this, because I too thought DiCaprio was excellent in this. Now, is it his best role ever? No, there's definitely, probably a 2, 3, a handful probably that could, Wolf of Wall Street, and just off the top of my head. But I sat there, huh?
Reverend.
Blood Diamond.
There
you go. Our favorite Leo DiCaprio.
The Departed.
Inception.
Star Island.
So there you go. So yeah, I mean, so the point is,
listing all of his roles.
Aviator Gangs in New York. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. I mean, you guys. So, but there's my point. He's just so well established that, I mean, he has very few bad films, and I remember doing this with Stillwater. Now, if you guys still haven't watched that, I still funny enough, still keeps coming up. I recommend that movie, because Matt Damon in that. Matt Damon in that. There's performances where you don't really see the actor really anymore, and you're seeing the character that they're playing, and you're forgetting that it's them. And that's after a while, that's what I thought DiCaprio did. I was just focusing on this, not completely dumb character, but not easily manipulated character. His accent, funny enough, reminded me of his character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Almost felt like verbatim that.
Mhm.
I
So
haven't seen that one first.
I might be wrong in that because I only saw Once Upon a Time one time, and I left going, "Wow, this was a super long movie." But I don't know if the payoff was worth this because it was super slow. Um, but
Highly.
yeah, and I think that like for at least for the first hour and a half of this movie, that's funny to say of anything. The first hour and a half, that's like a majority of most movies. Um, I thought it was super well paced. Like Clint and I were talking before, like right after he had watched it, and he said, "Yeah, they come like right out of the gates, and like they're just it's super like, all right, let's go, let's get this, let's do this movie." And then after that hour and a half, it kind of settles in with this like, all right, we're kind of just stuck in neutral here for a moment. For me, felt like what I'd say a half hour, somewhere between that and 45 minutes. Then it kind of uptakes, and we're getting to the finale here. But then it kind of just coasts. It doesn't really like super ramp things up. Just I enjoyed this movie thoroughly. I too, like Clint, struggle with, okay, I hate to say that this movie needed to be 3.5 hours long. I could only really think of maybe a 5 minute um chunk. It's somewhere in the middle that was like, okay, we didn't really need that. Otherwise, I thought it all backstory wise needed to be in there. The details needed to be in there. I mean, like Glenn said, you actually could have used more um to kind of help you get your brain around what certain things were. Um the perspectives. Ryan, I'm glad you said that Rachel she read the book or she's reading the book.
She read it. She made sure to finish it before the movie. So
And I believe the book, I was told that the book is from the FBI's perspective.
yeah, it's pretty
So,
much like I think she said it's almost like reading like the case files of it essentially,
yep.
which is very
That's
different. You
yeah,
know,
that's interesting.
hmm So, what they did was perfectly fine. What Martin Scorsese, and the cinematography, I thought was great. I thought
Mhm.
shots were perfect. They held on to him just long enough to not lose your interest, and then switch around. And I liked it. I never really thought. I mean, until around middle that it was kind of boring. I never really thought that. And I was like, this is super good. Like I'm following this and not getting bored. And I thought that was not going to be the case. I thought I was going to be like, okay, 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 okay. Um, but it shot fairly well, and I left going, you know what? This might be in my top, at least in my top five this year. At least. Um, and but it's interesting, and I mentioned the whole book thing is I wonder if people might dislike it because of the perspective they chose to, and I think Clint mentioned it, where um they only focused on this one family, or they super concentrated right here, and they didn't even like. I mean, the FBI. I mean, are we getting into spoilers here? Can we mention
Oh
that?
yeah,
Like,
let's go
what's your rating?
spoilers.
oh, I think I told Clint I could I give it an 8 as well. Um, but if you both were a 7 and you both had compelling arguments, um, that I would go to a 7 because I think I could have been talked down to it. But it would be no less than a 7. Like a 7 is absolutely its bare minimum because I thoroughly enjoyed it. And even Lily Gladstone, who I'm not super familiar with, I thought she did really well. Um, Through, basically her role was kind of like two halves. You have to see the movie to understand that. So that's why, don't want to spoil that too much. And I don't really watch Scorsese films. I thoroughly enjoy this. Would I watch it again? Maybe not right now, but definitely down the line. I'd love to rewatch it and, try and catch a few details here and there that I probably missed out, which is inevitable of 3 hours plus. Um, but yeah, it's definitely worth watching. Um, it's a solid film. I couldn't see anybody outright disliking it unless they're just, a non-casual moviegoer who just happens to be like, oh, a Leonardo DiCaprio film, and then has no idea anything of it's about and is not prepared for that runtime. Otherwise, if you're, any film lover, if you're a casual to somewhat frequent, go check it out. It's really good. I like I said, top at least in my top five, maybe even in my top three this year. Um, definitely worth watching.
Cool. So let's go spoilers then. But as you guys were talking, I think what I would cut is those like the rehashes of those like some of those murder scenes. Like we got it like the first time. We knew.
Yeah,
I would
I'd
cut
agree.
it the first time and rehash it when it's like recapping it, because the whole thing with the movie is like it often wants to stick with almost the perspective of ignorance, as we as the
Mhm.
audience are occasionally left out of important things that are going on. We don't see King hiring people like really at all.
Right.
Or we don't see that process, and then we hear about it, we see it in the investigation, we go back to it, and I'm almost like I would not have minded maybe the back end being like the first half of this movie. um Man, that's me being unstable. So, um, but yeah, that the whole idea is like you could almost front of the front half being the kind of Leo and Lily falling in love and their relationship and building out the importance of that, and in the back end we find out we get the full extent of the gangster film that was happening in the background of the first half, in more light, which is kind of the point of the investigation, I think. Um, and I think that would have made it maybe hard to get through for some viewers early on, being like, "Oh, where is the violence?" But I think the payoff would have been better.
Yeah, I will agree with that because there are points of this story where I was like, "Hey, this is Goodfellas in Oklahoma in 1920." So
Yeah, I was because I don't like a ton of language in a movie. Like if it's I'm not like a prude or anything. I don't, if it's there, great, whatever. I don't care. But like I mentioned Wolf of Wall Street. I actually never watched Wolf of Wall Street because I just can't get through all that language. I mean, it's just like it just seems almost like lazy to me, but not like criticizing anybody writing wise, but I'm just like I can't get behind that. And so I was actually I sat there for like, that whole hour and a half and I was like I maybe heard like one profanity, one F bomb that I can remember. So I was a little surprised by that. And then the violent moments were so funny enough, a movie about, killing, it was kind of seldom on screen, at least what I remember, because I probably could count them on one hand. But they did make me go, whoa. I remember because I threw it on for myself and I was like, somebody just out of nowhere just gets shot in the back of the head and it's like, whoa, all
yeah,
right, that just kind
I
of
will.
happened.
Right, and I will say that I think that that's the one thing that I do respect about Martin Scorsese is that when he does like it literally that's why it reminds me of Goodfellas because there's just moments in Goodfellas where it's just like pop and you're like oh okay that's what's happening
Yeah,
right now and it's just like that scene. Again, we're in spoilers, but it's like that scene where they replay the murder of was it Anna,
yeah,
one of the
or
sisters
Anne.
gotten
I think it's
she gets
Anne or Anna, one of the
she's
other.
shot in the
Yeah,
head where it's just so quick that it's just it kind of gets you. It's like a jolt. It's almost like a cheap scare, really, and it's just kind of like Scorsese's known to do that throughout most of his films. Casino was like that a lot, and like Goodfellas is like that a lot, where it's just like and then like that scene where he shoots that guy, supposed to shoot him in the head, but he shoot him in the back, where it's just like you know that it's coming, but it's so quick and painless. I shouldn't say painless, but it's just so quick that it's just like, oh, and then it's done. So
Yeah, I thought that too, because there's a number of moments in there where, a lot of quick shots, to the head. Um, and I was like, well, they're just playing this, and there's no super dramatic score happening here. There's no da da da. But I was like, it submerges you into what probably it felt like, or, if you were just, a fly on the wall, or, fly in the field, I guess, and just happened to be there. And I'm like, that's in real life, that's probably, I mean, that's how it had to be, because, it just done, go, and then they just leave them there, and that's it. And I'm like, it's so quick, but like that mimics real life. That's had to be how it happened, and I almost applaud him for that kind of way it was shot. I was like, because yeah, that seems realistic. So as funny it is to say, I thought it was shot well, in that regard. And Ryan, was there anything? I tried to sit there and think, is there any? Because there's not really much music that I can remember being a standout.
Yeah, there is a full score from I had it on my head and then I forgot it. Um, Robbie Robertson, who is I think a member of some band, and I actually think he just
Yeah.
passed away a couple months ago.
Yeah, I
I
remember kept seeing that name. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry.
I haven't gotten the chance to actually listen to the score yet, and after Blue Beetle, I'm not going to talk about it too much without listening to it on its own. That score
Yeah,
sucks.
right.
I really liked it in the movie. I can feel it being a lot of the same often. So I'd be a little worried if because CD can hold 80 minutes and then you want to toss a couple of licensed songs on there and stuff. So I'm like, an hour worth of score. I could see that being a lot of the same on its release, or I could see them kind of picking the highlights. But there is a good bit of score. It's kind of that very kind of low key, almost like bass score the whole time. I really like the uniqueness of it. Scorsese never head first with scores, but I really like the ones he does, where you get like a little bit of Howard Shore and Gangs of New York and The Departed. Those are the ones that kind of stand out to me. And so I thought it was really good. I will listen to it and give more commentary next time.
Yeah, I tried to, when it got to a higher level of drama, I tried to listen for if I felt like the music was starting to swell up to try and make you feel this moment. And I sat there going, I don't think they're doing that. I don't think that's the case, because I'm not really, now again, I don't have an ear for this kind of stuff, but I'm sitting there going, they're just kind of letting the scene play out as it is, and having, it's almost like less is more for me.
Very
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I like Scorsese does that a lot. Like Ryan said, Scorsese uses a lot of diegetic
Yeah.
music and stuff like that. So it's like stuff that's like on the jukebox or whatever. Like Goodfellas, like I said, like a lot of it's the only thing that kind of references, because I've seen that multiple times. But it's like when those murder scenes happen, if you ever notice, there's no music to it.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like how a lot of Goodfellas is. It's like once those moments that like are supposed to be those dramatic moments, and that you're supposed to have that swell of music, it is just that quick shot, and they're moving on, and it's just like a lot of Scorsese's movies are like that.
Yeah. So, and I mean, like I said, it works. I think it's shot well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing this for how long? And so he knows how to, you know,
47
direct
years, yeah.
at least. Yeah. So, I mean, he knows what he's doing. So, yeah, a lot of it shot well, really well. Like I said, the whole score, it's a less is more kind of deal. And I'd be a little surprised if it's not that way, Ryan, where it's a lot of just kind of looping over.
Yeah, I think that's the I call it the Bram Stoker's Dracula effect, where it's like there's a
Yeah.
great score, and then the guy's like, "Hey, man, you want music through the whole movie? We're just gonna
Yeah.
repeat some beats." And so you're listening to it for 3 hours. I mean, not 3 hours of music, but you listen to like 2 hours of music, and you're like, "Okay, yeah, these are the same beats that you've already done," but it's okay
Mhm.
because most audiences are not paying attention. And then when you cut that down to your perfect like hour of music, that's the best stuff anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah. Who else? I mean, well, we all know that Brendan Fraser's involvement in this both is very extremely minimal and bizarre, to say the least. Now, granted, I was told that the person in which he's personifying, he was accurately doing because apparently that's kind of how that attorney was. But still, I'm like, this
I
man,
like
it took him 3 hours to get into the movie. 3 hours. And he's in there for what? 2 minutes?
two scenes.
Yeah. And I think what? He had 6 lines of dialogue. And I'm like,
Three. It's 3 scenes.
three? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He first
I just
when he
was,
first shows up at the house, and then when he shows up at the end, the attorney again, the courthouse.
yeah.
I don't even remember the second courthouse scene. I just but
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me personally, it's probably Brendan Fraser going, "Hey, you want to be in a Martin Scorsese film?" Yeah. Okay.
Say less.
Yeah, right. And like John Lithgow, you want to be in a Martin Scorsese film? Yeah, I have nothing else better to do. I'll be in 5 minutes of this movie too. Quick.
I didn't
Cool.
dislike his performance as, again, minimal as his was. I mean, grant again, he's just towards the end, the payoff of this court scene. His was okay, but I actually knew that Brendan Fraser was in it, and I didn't know he was in it until like the day before that somebody said, "Oh yeah, and Brendan Fraser's part was just weird," and I was like, I didn't know he's in this. So that was just another bizarre moment that I was like, it could have.
I thought it was a great contrast. I thought it was pretty great actually because I think the goal was like we're getting the federal government involved and we're calming things down a little bit, even though things are escalating for the characters who we've spent the last 3 hours with. And you get like John Lithgow, who's like the federal prosecutor, and he's like calm and professional. And then you meet essentially like the mob lawyer, and he's just all out like loud, defensive, putting everybody on edge. The opposite of what everyone's been trying to do this whole time is to like calm Leo down, walk him through things, and he's like, "No, stop! This is all wrong!" Like, and
Yeah.
I think it was great because it was just like the contrast, even in him and the characters he's defending is so interesting because they're all sitting there like, yep, this is what we wanted. We wanted someone to yell for us because we have nothing to hide. We totally do, but we have nothing to hide for us. And he's just going to make everybody feel really, really uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. I heard there were I guess we can't say tweets anymore. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X posts that were like about him. So they were like, give the Oscar back. Give the Oscar. I was like, come on, leave the guy alone.
This is what happens when you spend 3 hours with conservative performances and then you see one outgoing performance.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't completely off put. Like I mean, if I'm going off of what you're saying, Ryan, yeah, I would actually want to see more from that character. I would just want to, I think it was just bizarre of, we need to question this man. We didn't get, and then, that's for 2 minutes. I'm like, no, flash in the pan. Like, okay, whatever. But still, be that as it may, still doesn't ruin, the movie.
No.
But yeah. It was a good movie. I sat there. I got up and I was like, I liked this. I really did enjoy this. I mean, I normally would struggle with that amount of time of a movie. I mean, but it's not like Clint and I were talking about. The Way of Water. There is a clear you could cut a half hour, if not more, of this movie of just going, ooh, water,
It's
ooh,
not long enough.
water.
It's not long enough.
Yes, it was.
Shush. No, I liked
Well,
The Way of Water. I didn't love it, but it's fine. It's good. But a half hour of ooh, ooh,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the last thing that I will say is like the last thing I will say is like I do agree with Ryan though. I think that if we got more, I think that was probably one of the other reasons of why I knocked it down to an 8 is too, is because like what Ryan said is like we kind of got to this like investigation. There really wasn't much of an investigation. I mean, on screen, obviously, on screen. And I do appreciate Scorsese's tactic here where you get these guys in here that are outsiders, and then you have this whole town or people that they're questioning kind of treat them like they think that they're idiots. And they've already pieced like together the plot of like what happened. They just want you to confirm that they know what you know and you whatever. So I do appreciate what Scorsese did with it, but I don't think that it needed to be just what 30 minutes, 30 whatever, 40 minutes of it. I like you said, Ryan, I think that would have been a little bit more interesting to actually deep dive into like what they
Yeah.
investigated, what they did.
I felt like that was a weird time to get back into, because the whole like second half of the movie is the audience being like, is he, like you said early on, is he an idiot or is he ignorant? Is he
Yeah.
intentionally ignorant? Is he like, how much does he know? And I appreciate that that goes unresolved, kind of. I guess I guess a little bit resolved, but like that felt like a weird time to be like, okay, the investigation's kicking off. Time to really get into more character development of like, who am I siding with? Am I going to go back and forth and back and forth? And I'm like,
Right.
one back and forth is fine. One character betrayal is fine. Like, cut some of that stuff. I think was because that's where I think it was getting honestly just a little repetitive. I was like, yep, I know how he's
Yeah.
been acting this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still doing the same.
Yeah. I do appreciate that there was not like I know this is kind of weird to say, but there was like a happy ending to this.
Yeah.
Or it was just like he had that chance to be like, yeah, I was poisoning you. We know it. You know it. And I think that was just her
Yeah.
way of like, yeah, tell me the truth. So I don't know. You guys got anything else?
I don't think so.
No, no, I think we've covered a good amount. There was a question raised. Does Lily Gladstone, she probably gets Oscar nominations, but
She
does
wins.
she, you think so?
You think so?
Calling it. Calling it.
Okay. Yeah, that was the question that was raised when I was talking after the movie. I was like, I don't know. I definitely think she definitely gets nomination, but I don't know. And is it for supporting actress or is it
That's a good
No.
question. Yeah.
She would be lead actress.
I would think so
I
too.
I think they're gonna run her supporting, and I think she's gonna win supporting because I think it's a less contested category, and she has a better chance of winning that way. I don't think that's necessarily right. I just think it's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But
I could see
every
that playing out.
every year there's like a couple performances from one or two categories that are like, oh yeah, this person should win the Oscar. And then if you go into fall and you don't hear anything otherwise, then that leads award seasons, and then that person just wins everything. And I was like, well, we don't have that for lead actor, we don't have that for supporting actor, and we don't have that for lead actress. I think they'll run our supporting because there's not that heavy word of mouth right now. So
Yeah, I think it was.
I
I
mean,
think with lead actress, I think I just heard Emma.
yeah,
What's
Emma
her
Stone.
Emma Stone
Yeah,
for Poor
Emma Stone. Yeah.
Things.
So
Emma Stone in what though?
Poor Things.
Oh,
It's the trailer that was in front of
Hmm.
Flower Moon.
yeah, the Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah.
Hmm.
She like wants to punch a cat or something like that in the movie. I don't know. I was happy to see. His movies are so weird. Like, I'm not
I
even gonna
love
lie.
I love
Yeah.
Lobster, but that's it.
Yeah, his movies. I do want to. I started 10 minutes of Killing of a Sacred Deer, but I do want to watch that. I heard that was really good. But the
Oh,
lobster was so weird.
when does because I shared that what is it, the what's that movie, Ryan? Blue Heron, or
Boy in the
the boy
Heron.
in the
Boy and
the Heron.
Heron,
I was like, um when does that come out?
Early December,
December
right?
8th. Yeah, December 8th.
Okay, that's what I thought, and I was like, I would kind of really hope that we get that too because of how many big names are attached to it. And I was like, it's Studio Ghibli, right? So I'm like,
Mhm.
can't be good, or can't be good. It can't fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Studio
So,
Ghibli, and it's not their 3D animation, Earwig and the Witch. It's only like that
Yeah.
one, which
Right.
wasn't. Word of mouth made that movie better.
yeah.
That's
All right. Well, the only thing that's coming out next week is Pain Hustlers on Netflix. So,
Well,
Nights
and
at
there's
Freddy's.
Five Nights at
What?
Freddy's, and then Five Nights at Freddy's,
Yeah.
the video game, like, horror, adaptation movie thing.
then you guys choose. I was going to do Pain Hustlers because it has Chris Evans
Um,
and Emily Blunt.
but we're also getting that. No, I'm not like, oh man, I want to do this, but we'll have it is Freelance, that John Cena movie. So I'm just saying there's that option. I'm not saying let's go with that, but I'm just saying it's there.
Good luck.
No, it's
It's
not
gonna be
there.
dumb. It's gonna be.
Yes, I'm going to see Nightmare Before Christmas. That's just what I care about this weekend.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
What was Pain Hustlers on?
Netflix.
Okay.
The flicks. Five Nights at Freddy's on Peacock, I thought, right?
Have you guys seen
They're
a
doing both.
movie? I think I was told it's a murder mystery called Reptile.
Oh yeah, Netflix.
Yeah,
Yeah, have either of you seen that?
not yet.
I heard it was really well done. So I was like, I might check that out with Ashley.
Critics didn't like it very much,
Because it's Netflix.
probably. But I thought that I heard that it was like one of those film festival darling, one of those ones that they like snatched.
I wasn't told that.
Benicio del Toro or whatever in it.
Maybe we should do kind of everybody does their own review, and we just come back on Sunday like, hey, I watched this. I watched it. I mean, we've done that before. We haven't done that in a while, but we've done that before.
Okay, yeah, because I have to finish the Continental anyway. That was.
Oh, I keep forgetting that's out. Gosh, so many shows, so many games, so much little time.
I don't expect much out of the second episode, and you'll probably enjoy it.
I think, did Matt say the same thing? I know he watched the first episode. I don't know what else he's watched. So Clay, you're gonna watch what again? What's the movie?
Pain Hustlers. I'll watch
Okay.
Five Nights at Freddy's, I guess.
I'll probably go with Five Nights just because it's kind of the default option. It's the only major release. I say major because it's also getting streaming at the same time, which is weird. I thought we were past that. Okay. But so Five Nights at Freddy's. But if Ryan wants to take that and I can do something else, I'm sure I can find something else.
I'll see what I get to.
So I'll have to watch that and maybe just a backup somewhere just to have something different to talk about. So let's just call it a roulette wheel of sorts for our next video.
Sorry, I wanted to see the new David Fincher movie. I thought it was coming out next week. But
The Killer?
Yeah, that's one of my most anticipated. Okay, well, yeah, we'll figure this out like we always do. You guys have anything else to say?
No.
All right. Well, then we will see you guys all next week. Thank you for watching. Comment below and let us know how we're doing. Okay. Bye.